So, hey, hello and welcome everybody to a new year and a new session for the Lighting Academy. Um, First of all, you might notice I have a new mic. Super exciting! It's actually a really, really good mic. It's a condenser mic, so you hopefully will be able to understand my soothing and nice voice so much better now. um, but I'm still figuring out a couple of settings. So I don't have a lot of like isolation materials in my room. So even though my voice probably sounds better now, you will hear a lot more reverb and hall in my voice because the microphone is just so much better. It picks all that stuff up now. So yeah, this will change and improve over time. Um, so yeah, exciting stuff. Let's see how it goes, and let's see how I can improve the quality of the audio further. Yeah. With that said, um, again, happy New Year to every one of you. Thank you so much for your support in 2017. Let's hope we can continue that trend for 2018 as well. Um, and yeah, I just hope you all had a very good time with your families and your loved ones, and hopefully you were also able to relax a bit, calm down, and celebrate nicely with your families, and just recharge the batteries. That's what you usually do over Christmas, or maybe afterwards when the family is gone again. So yeah. Um, yeah, so let's get it started. With that said, everything that we are going to talk about here and that I'm going to say, it's my experience, it's my opinion, it's nothing is set in stone. There's so many ways of doing these things, so just bear in mind these are my experiences, my best practices. Um, yeah, so here is the scene. Dismiss this one. Yeah, I've teased a little bit about this. So this is the Dark Souls scene uh, that we will be working on, and that is basically exactly like how I got the scene. So I just unzipped it and I threw it into Unreal, and this is what it looks like. You can already see that for some reason I didn't have a latest bake, which I believe you can see here. Like, this is super blue and this is super yellow, and you can see here is like, yeah, there are a couple of issues. I would say these issues, they are probably because the scene has been built with like, oh gosh, I don't know, like 4.14 or something like that. I don't even remember how old it is now. And so now we got quite a lot of improvements in regards to the lighting tech itself. We got volumetric light maps and, like a bunch of other cool things. And it could be that it just has some things have changed in the background and it has troubles reading that old stuff in that state. So it's not that it's like broken, it's just we need to rebake it and everything will be good. But you can see that there's different colors, like some stuff is more blue and some stuff is not. So that is probably all the stuff that it says up here where it says unbuilt objects. Yeah, so here we have this kind of main area. Yeah, I mean, you can already see this looks broken like crazy here. That just doesn't work at all here. Yeah. Here you can see it's like, but it doesn't really matter because I mean we're here to look at the scene for now, and to analyze it and to see the potential that we can uh, tweak towards too. So, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure if everyone has seen the full thing. Uh, let's just give me a second. Yeah. So I'm just gonna show it quickly again to you. So that's the post from Benjamin who built this environment. And if the lighting is built, it looks like this. Um, so you can see it's really really nice. It's fairly detailed. So we have a lot of detailed geometry. Actually, we have quite a lot of vegetation in here as well. Not only the trees out there, we got like the ivies here and grass and leaves and things. So it's. I mean, it's not a dense forest, right? But there's a lot of stuff that we can work with, and you can see it really. Excuse me. Looks pretty nice. I mean, obviously I still think there's a lot that we can improve on, but I mean this is some really great work here. I mean this is like, yeah, nothing much to be said. um, something interesting though. If we take some old shots here. I mean, so this is the thing, right? Like when I talked to Benjamin, we said like he didn't really have anything where he said like, hey, like do exactly this. Like this is really, you know, I mean, obviously we have the reference of the original map, but as you can see, it's fairly outdated. And it's going to be a bit tricky. So basically, the main idea that we said was like, hey, let's keep the spirit of the Dark Souls feel, but like try to make it look as realistic as possible, right? So that we just, you know, it kind of loses a bit of that maybe of that gaminess in the look of it. Like you know, some things they are just very very off, and it's like let's show by example. So if we look at some of these shots here. So I think this is, yeah, it's a nice shot here. So you can see the sky, right? And I mean that just looks, it doesn't work, right? From a physical perspective, basically, or from a scientific perspective. That sky here is way too dark in comparison to how brightly this shadowed area is exposed, right? If you remember my last session about Archviz, um, where we looked at the interior of an atelier space where you show paintings and stuff like that. We had a strong problem there because basically in the old setup the lighting was made so strong that the interior becomes bright. So the lighting was tweaked towards a certain goal that was seen in an image where, oh, the interior has to be that bright. So there was like just added more and more and more lighting so the interior becomes that bright. But that's wrong because that's not how it works in reality. So in reality, it actually doesn't have that much light inside, and then you raise the exposure of your camera, it starts exposing the shadowed area differently, that becomes visible, and then it starts actually overblowing the bright parts of the image. That's just a matter of how that works, right? So if you look at this picture here, it is fairly highly exposed to make this visible here, so that stuff here should be completely blown out. And that is something that is. So, first of all, older games made these mistakes quite a lot, and that just is because A, technology, and B, things just get more accurate. Like people get more knowledge and they consider more things. And I mean, like, obviously that knowledge was there 15 years ago, but 15 years ago, games were not made in a cinematic way as much as they are today. And the technology hasn't kind of like combined as much as it has today. So, like 15 years ago, people said, like, yeah, but making this video game is so different from shooting a movie. Um, and it was, and that's why there was so much more creative freedom, obviously, of like choosing your sky colors and these things. But today it's all a lot more cinematic, at least when you're looking at realistic visuals. And then you want to have those relationships, you want to have them right, because otherwise it looks off. And for example, I think this guy here looks off. If you look at this one, for example, that is actually, as you can see here, it's from the Dark Souls wiki. But, and that is funny, that shot looks like something entirely different. That doesn't look like Dark Souls. I mean, it does because of the geometry and all that stuff. But the quality of the image is way more cinematic. It basically looks like someone took Dark Souls and made it again with a new engine and some proper lighting and stuff. So you could basically think, hey, maybe that is actually a shot from Benjamin's scene. But as you can see, it's actually not, because the sky is extremely yellow here as well. It's not blue at all. And the sky is also very dark. So here, I mean, this is what I kind of like, and that makes sense, but there should be spots that are more defined, right? And what I also don't like is this super crazy, everything is just yellow brown. And I mean, that's an interesting thing, because here, I mean, yeah, bad example because of the fire, but here, I mean, that is Dark Souls 3, I think. I mean, that's just how it looks, right? So the interesting thing for us will be, can we like maintain this, but still make it look more modern, more cinematic, more sexy, right? And so if you take these screenshots here and you just look at what Benjamin already did, I mean, you can see that he was already able to push this environment quite a bit, right? I mean, it's a tremendous step up from the visuals of Dark Souls 3. So I think this is really, really, really cool already. But yeah, let's look into what we can do. So, all right. So first of all, I mean, we basically we always do the same stuff. Things don't really change. It's just the context that changes mostly. So let's have a look here. Let's start with our directional light, and let's just have a look here. Okay, so I mean, I there's so much that we I'm just like, I need to think how we best start all of this. Um, so if I look at this, right? I mean, like when I go through the scene and check all the entities, I also check how the whole scene looks like, right? So basically, I just see the picture like this, and of course the floor is not baked, which is why it looks broken. So my brain filters that out. I look past the fact that the floor is broken right now, and I try to see other things. So what I see is I click to sun and I see intensity 3, and I see this. Okay, I think it's an ugly color. I see this very, very ugly color for the light, um, and then I see the image itself, and it looks weird. The sky is super bright here and actually fairly dark here. It feels like it's kind of high contrast, but then it isn't. Where the sun is hitting, like this is not overblowing as much as it should, in my opinion. So this is very it doesn't really feel like the sunlight is hot and is hitting that stuff, right? It feels like way too dull. Um, and that's not even like it's not like the contrast or anything. I mean, like, we could just like, I don't know which post volume is the right one. I'm just like doing some stupid stuff right now. But I mean, like, I don't know, right? I don't know which one is the yeah. I mean, of course we can kind of like do these things, but you can see it just starts like becoming all these values. It gets like golden, super strong, yellow, orange, brown, ochre color vibes. It becomes messy and muddy, and it's like it becomes just pitch black, and you don't see stuff anymore. I mean, this is really, really bad. It's a really, really bad tweak to do that. So we need to clean up our settings. Like we need to start again with Adam and Eve, and not with all the stuff afterwards. Um, See, this is funny. Like, did you see how I wrote an A? Like, this happens so often while I talk and I actually write stuff. I start writing what I'm saying instead of what I'm actually what I want to type. Maybe some of you know that. So it's a very, very weird thing. But anyways, oh, yeah. So directional light. So first of all, I don't like the color, and honestly, let's get completely rid of the color. So you might remember from my older sessions as well, like what I like to do is I like to clean up and get a clean base, but like not only just like value wise, but I really like to reset everything. Um, because it's pretty hard for me to make something work with all the work that has already been done. Maybe that sounds weird the way I just said it, but I mean, if there's so many values that have already been touched, it's kind of like, um, well, let's turn that off. It's like when oh no, it's not in the project settings. It's in the editor settings. When I was in apprenticeship, I studied graphic design here, and it's always that you can overdo all these things a little bit, and like dive too much into like just sticking with like fooling around, and like you're trying to make this logo work or this website, and at some point you've done so many things, and then you're like going back into it, and you're like, hey, I really want to push this to the next level now. I wanna yeah, finish it up, right? And then you go in and you're like, holy shit, like what have I touched? What's like all that stuff? And the problem is you just don't remember anymore, and you have tweaked so many values already that if you start tweaking again on top of that, it just becomes more and more messy and messy and messy. So, yeah, long story short, I'll just reset all that stuff and start with a clean slate. There's also some crazy stuff in here, so you can see we got like indirect lighting intensity of 5, which is like, why would I need that? But and if we look at this, oh, yeah, so this is interesting. Like, if some of you see stuff like that and you're wondering, like, where is all my stuff? And you can see like this. So that also explains why the scene runs quite bad. So, because if you go to the lighting only view mode and you see like these dots and your geometry disappears, that is because you're using tessellation. And honestly, I don't know. I don't know why Epic has that behavior, or Unreal has that behavior, that it cannot turn off tessellation dynamically for tessellated stuff and just show it shaded. No, instead, everything that has tessellation, it just gets like invisible, kind of. So now the funny thing is that if you look at this, like, why the hell do you need tessellation anyways? So you can see it's not turned on here, and that is actually the funny thing. So basically what's happening here is God damn it. So what's basically happening is tessellation is turned on in the main material, but I guess the multiplier for tessellation is just like at 0. So you can see here there is no tessellation besides on the ground. And that actually looks like it is indeed tessellating something. Or no, it's actually not. That is just a terrain scout. So, okay, so we got tessellation here on this thingy. Yeah. Honestly, sorry for my words, but fuck it. I mean, that is so minimal that it's just, yeah. So I'm just gonna turn tessellation off in the shader, because like it's not really important for us, and it just like eats away performance for now. There is no LOD setup in here. I mean, I can just instantly see this because this is a tessellation multiplier, and what you usually want to do is you want to hook up a distance fade for the tessellation multiplier, so you can say like, yeah, tessellate close to the camera and then do not tessellate after 10 meters. Another thing why the performance of this is so bad with the tessellation is because I actually have modded tessellation. So to explain the background, the tessellation has a tessellation multiplier here, and basically that one, it used to be from 1 to 16 or from 1 to 8 or something like that, but I think they changed it, so now it's just from 0 to 1, but inside 0 to 1 it still goes like from 0 to 8 or 16. So basically the max multiplier for tessellation is 8 or 16, one of the two. And that means that if you have a geometry with a certain subdivision amount, and you need like a certain detail size basically in your, let's say you have a ground texture on that plane, right? And you have like roots from trees that are like on the ground, and they come out like a nice forest, right? And you want to tessellate those roots, but like the roots, they look super blocky and weird, and you don't get enough detail. Then you need to either increase the resolution of the plane, or you need to increase the tessellation multiplier so it can tessellate it more into finer detail. Or if it has finer detail, it automatically gets finer detail with this with the same tessellation, right? And so I was working on landscape tessellation, and the landscape has a fixed resolution. So at some point, the tessellation multiplier cannot be adjusted high enough to get like gravel into tessellated detail on the landscape. So I modded my tessellation shader files so that I can actually tessellate more and have higher multipliers. So if per default this material uses a tessellation multiplier of 1, you probably that's why it's killing my performance, because it's just tessellating like a super crazy amount that you should never ever use. But yeah, just so you know, if you're working with things like that, that's stuff that you can actually do. So you can just go into the shader files and adjust the tessellation amount of the shader itself, so you can actually have a tessellation multiplier of 32 or 64. But I think it's actually via code hard locked on 64, so you can't really go higher than that. Whoopsala. I actually wanted to go into this one again. So, because what I want to do is I just want to quickly grab these. Oh, I can't even click them now. Nice. So I just want to grab this shader, and I want to turn off the tessellation. Geez, that is a big shader. Sorry, by the way, when I talked about the tessellation multiplier just a minute ago, I actually had the material on my other screen, and I totally forgot about that. So I was talking about things that you should see, which you actually could never see. But here it is. So getting rid of that. Let's see how much was affected by that. Okay, so that stuff is all there now. Oh, that actually looks like that was the only material. Oh, by the way, it's also not running that well because the lighting is unbuilt, which means it's right now casting way more dynamic shadows than it should, because the content is not built. So, anyways, yeah. So that helps us, right? So now we can see the geometry, and we can see the things going on here. We can already see a couple of things. So first of all, that bake is not a very crisp bake, right? It's, yeah. I mean, you can see it's not yeah, it's not a very tight bake, right? And that can have multiple issues, multiple reasons. Sorry. So it could either be the bake settings, or it can be the resolution. I mean, I don't know. So if I look at this, yeah, that's not really gonna do a lot of good stuff. These settings are not that great. And yeah, overall that explains, excuse me, a bit the quality issues we're having here. Cool. So I'm just gonna reset all this quickly. So, I mean, the thing is, like, this stuff here, environment color, environment intensity, it does absolutely nothing if you have a skylight. Because the skylight is what is basically doing that stuff. And if you don't have a skylight, it falls back to that. So that is actually a legacy feature from when there was no skylight. Okay. So these settings, I will keep them. So I will keep that at 2K. I will keep the static lighting level scale. I will keep the indirect lighting bounces to 10. And the sky bounces to 10 as well. And I will keep this stuff for now like this. I will keep these settings as well. I will not use ambient occlusion for now. And so, yeah, that's just cool. Okay, and we were at the directional light. So, what I don't really understand is why Epic is doing this. So if you reset the intensity of the directional light, you get a 10. which basically actually gives us a lot more of this thing that I was saying, this relationship of like this looks very bright and hot spot. And here you get the nice cool shadows, because the intensity thingy is like they actually say that they use this intensity per default, which oh god, I always forget it, but I think it's pi. Yeah, I mean, I don't forget that it's pi, but I always forget is pi 3.14 or 3.41. That's the thing that I always screw up. So, but yeah, like Epic, they figured out that for certain things, like it kind of makes sense. So that's like their color test level. It has this sun intensity, and I'm just I don't know why they don't basically use this as the default value. So if you like reset it, it goes back to 10, which is kind of like, but if Epic recommends this value, then why don't you like use that value as the default? Anyways, indirect lighting intensity, we go back to 1, and obviously we get the message that we need to rebake. And now we're gonna start getting some very, very bad performance now, because now we have so much unbuilt objects with all the vegetation and shadow casting. It's gonna, yeah, you can see it's already very, very bad performance. So I don't even know where the sun is. Where's the sun? I think the sun is here. There's like a wider spot here. But I mean, see, this is like a weird thing. I mean, like, where is the sun? Yeah, so, and there should be some sort of god rays, like, somewhere here. Yeah, not really. But, so, yeah, just turn that off. All these light shafts, we're not gonna use it. We're not gonna use area shadows right now. And this is pretty crazy. We're gonna do this. This. Just gonna, for now, we're gonna reset these values. I keep this one. I'm gonna explain to you why. You can see how much crisper the shadows are now as well. So first of all, like, we don't need that much distance of dynamic shadows. That's the reason why we have light mask. So like all these shadows will be baked, and only the close-up shadows will be dynamic shadows. Because we want that, because we're gonna we have like animated foliage here, right? So you want to have the shadows moving from the foliage. That's one thing that is important. And the other thing is like dynamic shadows, they are expensive, and the cascades are basically slices in the texture that the further, like the more distance you have to cover, the more slices you need for the shadows to look good. And the more slices you have, the more expensive they get. So basically when you lower the distance, you want to lower these slices as well, because otherwise it only gets, it does get cheaper, but not as much as it could, right? But then again, when you work on portfolio stuff, just decide for yourself on how much you actually want to alter these things. So, since we looked at the directional light now here, and it's on stationary as well, which is what I like, personally. So yeah, I mean, this project uses light mass right now, and I will continue to use light mass on this project, so which is why I'm keeping the stationary light. So we got a skylight here, and it's using the captured scene, and then just tints it blue by a ridiculous amount. This will remove all color from the skylighting. And there's also like a thing that, like, you know, why is the skylighting blue if the sky is orange brown? So that is like a huge disconnect. Um, which is also the reason why I think it doesn't work as well as it could, because like for example this part here and this blue part here, it just doesn't relate nicely. It doesn't really work in my opinion. And then we got a problem with this stuff here, this, and that is actually bounce light from the sun, because the sun had this super ugly yellow color before. It's kind of like it hits the floor, bounces back in the pillar, and you get this super ugly bounce. So we're just gonna step by step touch all these things. And what's that pop here? Boop, boop. That's interesting. Yeah, anyways, I guess we just really need to like rebake and yada yada. So we're gonna keep this in capture scene. The intensity, I will put it back to 1. The light color will be set to neutral again. We affect the world, yeah. Indirect lighting intensity is back to 1 as well. Capture emissive only, nope. We do not solid color. And that is okay for now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the same thing as we did in the architectural scene. Whoops. So we're just gonna import a HDR image. So this is an EXR now. It's not an HDR. I mean, it is a HDR file in that sense, but I'm not importing it as a HDR. I'm importing it as EXR, and I explained that in my other video too. If I import it as an EXR, it still, as you can see, gets flagged as an HDR image. We're gonna choose texture group skybox here. But the cool thing is you can just drop it into a material and it projects on a sphere properly. If you choose an HDR, for some weird reason, it flips the axis and you have to do some translation math. And if you want to rotate it, it's kind of... because like you map it on the sphere with the reflection vector, and that means that if you rotate the sphere, the actual image doesn't rotate with it. So if you want to rotate the sky, you have to apply some extra math to the shader, which is unnecessary. So yeah, don't do it. Whoops. Sky Master. Okay. And we really don't need a lot. So the only thing that we actually need is we need to drop this into the emissive color. And we're gonna say that you're unlit and you are two-sided. And what we also gonna do is cluck. We're gonna just add this brightness multiplier here. And of course we put it to 1 per default. So now we gonna go to the engine content and we search for sphere, and we take the regular editor sphere and we drag it in. Hello. What is going on? Nice. So we just gonna take this baby here and gonna drop our sky material on it. Whoops. Yeah, doesn't work if you click the texture. All right. So, we search for shadow. We're gonna turn off dynamic shadow and static shadow, and then why is... Yeah, usually you can turn off this flag too. Like, this is super weird. This is completely random, I believe. Maybe yeah, maybe I need to report a bug. But like, so what happens is this. When you have a material that is set to unlit, the object will not cast shadows because it's unlit, right? The problem, however, is I had that. Even if I say it's unlit, and I make this sphere and I use it as a sky dome, I still don't get sunlight anymore because the sphere casts shadow onto the world and blocks the sunlight. I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I have an unlit material. And then what I did was I turned off cast shadow here. And sometimes I had to turn these off as well. And also sometimes when you make an unlit material, it actually grays that out already for you. So, like, if I would probably go here and say default lit, and I would save this. It is still not allowing me this option. Okay, that's interesting. That is very interesting. Huh. Okay, so yeah, that is really weird because I just did exactly this on another map like 2 days ago, and I had to turn this one off as well. Anyways, yeah, so that's fine. Okay, so we'll just try like this then. So yeah, just link this one here so you scale with the same amount in all axes. And now we go up and we click this one because, like, I mean, I really hate this blueprint thingy. It's I don't think it looks good at all. Oh, look, and that is where the sun is. Nice. So I'm gonna keep this one now to match the positions a bit better, but I'm not gonna stay with the atmospheric fog. So first of all, let's say we scale this to 500. Yeah. So we can already see that. And what we can also see is that we have our sun like here. So we basically want to put the sun there as well. And we also might want to make this a lot larger. So it's still not large enough for us to see the sun disk. Because what you can do is you can basically make it so big. What's that? 15,000, I think. Yeah. Let's say 25,000. You can make it so big that at some point it actually renders the fog, the disk from the fog in front of the sky dome. So let's try that out, like 500,000. See, there we go. So now we scaled the sky dome so big that actually the atmospheric fog is inside of the sky dome. and see that bloom that we get here from the sky, from the sun that we basically have in the HDR image. So what we're gonna do now is, first of all, we're gonna rotate the sky around. Because I actually like, I don't think that angle is bad or anything. I actually like this angle quite a bit. So we got like some interesting post stuff going on here. So we could just like quickly manually, yeah. Let's do this for now. All right. So I think it would be cool to have it a bit more to the right. Maybe. So now what we can do is, I'm like, the thing is the sun is pretty low on this one. But we also already have quite a low sun. So what we can do is we can fake the stuff a bit, but we can also bring it closer together. So first of all, what I'm gonna do is not this. I thought I had the sun selected, sorry. I'm gonna move, yeah, it's so large. Gonna move the sky dome up quite a bit. Let's say, yeah, 150,000. Did you see? It was not that much. It's kind of like, it's just 500. See, it's so big. It's kind of like you don't really. And yeah, I by the way, I don't care about these trees right now. I mean, this is like stuff you can just paint it out if you really want to. But we can also fog it away over distance. So we'll see. But I don't really care too much about this right now. Or you can have like some landscape, you know, like some mountains covering it. I mean, that would be the preferred way, right? To have some landscape covering it. Anyways, so here we got the light. So what we can do is we can do kind of like this. So, and this, we're gonna delete that fog anyways, so we're not gonna get this. So if you gonna look at this, see that? So I'm gonna turn that off. And now we have a sun position that is basically like that other position, and it just matches up a lot more. And I think this stuff here is still... Yeah, so see, this is the thing, right? Because the sun is now lower, it actually doesn't really hit that well here. So this is the thing, like, you can actually fake that as well, right? I mean, no one tells us that we have to do this. No one tells us, like, hey, you know, you have to... sorry, let me just quickly move that to a better spot. No one is telling you, like, hey, you your sun has to come from that angle, and because of the sky. And I mean, you know, small differences, they don't really do a lot. So whoops, basically what you can do is you can say, like, hey, you know, I actually like the sun like this. I mean, do it. Do it. It's not like, you know. Yeah, maybe something like this. Just kind of like keep it like that. And we're not gonna see it because it's gonna use the one from here as well, right? So here we got this bloom. And yeah, we're gonna fix a lot there as well. So now let's come to the post volumes. I'm gonna turn them all off for now because I don't know, like, what they all do. That one is the main volume. Ooh. Okay, horrible. So, and I'm gonna add a new one, and I call it PP Lighting Academy. So, and I'm just gonna make it unbound. And I'm gonna go into auto exposure. And I mean, this is obviously very, very bad. So let's see what we can get here. So just, I mean, just this, right? I mean, it doesn't look like Dark Souls that much. But value-wise, if we would, like, you know, where is it? If we would just go in here and take these values, this works a lot more than what we had before. Just, you know, in terms of the whole range of the image. So the sky is so much brighter now and more readable. And of course it looks like way too happy now. And way too, hey, look, blue, vacation, holiday, fun. I mean, yeah, we're not there yet, obviously. But I mean, like, this alone, just like the definition of the sky and the epic cloud shapes, it just, like, I think this fits so much better, just shape wise and value wise, right? So I think this is actually, I mean, you know, this just looks so much better now already. without us doing a lot. And now we tweak these values, and you can see the sky is still readable. We actually have no fog right now, but don't you worry. We'll do all that. So yeah, I think just with these small touches, I mean, I did really like nothing, right? I mean, I just basically I reset the values, and you can see it doesn't really look worse than before. Actually, it's like, I mean, you know, I adjusted the exposure, I reset the light intensities, and it still doesn't look darker than before. It actually works really, really, really well still. So yeah, I mean, that's gonna be cool, figuring all that out and adjusting these values nicely. So I'm gonna show you something, because like I think I'm gonna wrap the session up for now. Let's really keep them like around an hour, and not make them too long. So before we can bake this, we need to set up a couple of more things. Because now I just reset the settings, and of course I want to see what they do. Like, what do I get from that? However, I would also need to look in some more into some more technical aspects of the scene. So mainly, what I did not look at all yet is base color. And I can already tell you that we have some troubles with the vegetation. I mean, this stuff is all good. I think they should have the same color though, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, we need. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we got a couple of very, very dark materials here. Like the vegetation, the floor material here, and this material is very, very saturated. We might want to look at that too. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. And then what I also want to check out is we got this. If you remember, this bake quality does not at all justify such a light map density. I'm not saying this because I'm hating, I'm saying this because I want you to understand that. If we look at this, I mean, I don't want to be rude, but what is this? You know, and I don't mean that in regards to Benjamin's work, not at all. It's more like from a theoretical perspective. I mean, you know, like, what is this? Like, is this like, does this look good? No, it doesn't. It doesn't look defined. I mean, it's suggesting that there is some sort of shadow here, but it's like full of artifacts. It isn't really precise enough. It's not that directional. We get this halo around here as well. It's just like, I'm like, yeah, okay. This, that is like close to Arcvis light map resolution. So if you don't have these tiny little shadow details everywhere, why would you need that resolution? Or if you have those resolutions, why don't you have those shadow details? So two things. Either the resolution is too high for what we actually need, or the bake is too crappy for what we can do. I would honestly say what we should do is we should meet in the center. Because I think, for example, this is way too high. I think something like this is the proper resolution that we should go for. Because I like, you know, look at this here. I mean, we don't need such a crazy resolution for like all these super high frequency little shadows, because when we look at this in here, we have dirty textures with normal maps, with breaks, we have variation everywhere. So we will actually not benefit a lot from that clearness. So if there was like a super precise little shadow at the corner, I mean, you wouldn't really notice because it gets taken away from all the noise, right? So I think for this scene we can be a lot better with the resolution, because like, you know, I don't really see any benefit here, and the bake is not that clean. So basically what I will do until the next session is I will go through the light map resolution so we can start baking. However, what we will also do now is I'm just gonna make a quick screenshot. Whoopsala. Light map density. I'll make a quick shot of this and save it out so we can compare later how I set up the new light map resolutions. So because of all this, I'm not gonna do a bake now. Because even if I would do it on preview, it might take very long. I've worked with the scene a little bit before, and I had quite a lot of issues because of texture streaming and light map resolution, and the bakes took very, very long until I had certain issues fixed. So yeah, I'm not gonna do a bake and we can look at something in 5 minutes. But I think the improvements that we could do with just a few clicks and just like, you know, streamlining some things. I think if we take this shot, for example, just value-wise, I think we're already in a better shape than before. So yeah, that's it for the first session of 2018 featuring the Farron Keep from Dark Souls 3. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was interesting, even though it didn't happen so much, or maybe as much as I would have liked to. But yeah, it's a fairly complex theme. There's quite a lot of content. And yeah, again, I will just update the light map resolutions and all that for the next time. And for the next time, we will go quickly through some of the diffuse colors, and we're gonna set up the scene for baking, and we're gonna do some test bakes to see where are we at. And we will also figure out if we want to use the volumetric light maps, which is basically probe lighting. I don't know why Epic always needs fancy names for stuff that is like there since 20 years. So we can either use dynamic lighting via these probes, the volumetric light maps, for vegetation and the trees, or we're going to use light mass. But that is something that we're going to figure out next time. So yeah, I hope you had a good time, enjoyed it. And thank you so much for all the support, love, and you guys watching the videos and commenting and asking questions. That's great. Please also check the forums if you have questions, because it is so much more easy for me to handle and take care of questions and all that via the Unreal forums than it is in the YouTube comment section. So yeah, I'm just thinking if I forgot anything that I wanted to say, but I think I did not. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, have a great time, and see you guys around. Bye bye.